I'm going to show you how you can create a culture of innovation so that your teams and your company can create profits that exceed expectations. I want to help you increase your productivity. I want you to feel better fulfillment and more joy at work. And in order to do that, I want you to have opportunities to use the best of your intelligence and the best of your creativity to solve the most difficult problems. But in order to do that, you have to have a culture of innovation. And many of us are in companies and parts of organizations that don't necessarily have a strong culture. And so it is important for us in our roles as managers and leaders to make sure that we do our part to establish a culture of innovation. So the things that I share with you today, the things that I've learned throughout my time as an officer in the United States Air Force and my time as a consultant at one of the big four accounting firms in the world, will be useful for you when you get ready to do your part in establishing that culture of innovation. So, President Donald Trump has endorsed Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton represents an individual that has achieved a certain level of success, and the success that he achieved is all because the United Kingdom and the United States of America has created a culture of innovation. And so people like Steve Hilton are able to benefit from that and they're able to achieve a certain level of success because of that culture. So there's a living, breathing example of what can be achieved when we are successful. Let's do a little bit of background about Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton is not related to the Hilton family. The Hilton family, as we know, very popular in the United States of America. They own a lot of the hotels, the luxury hotels that some of us frequent. Steve Hilton, his parents were born in Hungary, and they migrated to the United Kingdom under the guise of asylum. In the United States of America, there's a lot of people from all over the world that migrate to our country under asylum or requesting asylum. When they migrated to the United Kingdom, I believe, based on what Steve is saying, he's saying that he was born in the United Kingdom, and shortly after he was born, before he reached the age of 10, his parents divorced, according to reports. And he eventually received a scholarship or a grant, essentially no money out of his pocket, to go to quite a pretty good quality boarding school. And from living with his parents, and then when their parents divorced, he lived with his mom. And from there, he went to a boarding school, and so he lived in that boarding school. He did well academically in the boarding school. Getting access to a high quality education is so important. And Steve is a good representation of how important it is for children as young as 11 to make sure that you get access to a high quality education. Based on the scholarship that he received and the grant money that he received, his family didn't have to pay for that education. And because he did well in that boarding school, he was able to get accepted and attend Oxford University. And he attended one of the most famous, most prestigious colleges at the Oxford University. There, I'm sure, based on how the story goes, he met classmates, he was able to network, and eventually, after attending school and graduating, he began to enter his political career. He started a political career working with Margaret Thatcher in the conservative leaning parties in the United Kingdom. Shortly after that, he met his wife, got married. Um, he achieved a certain level of success in the political world, and then he transitioned out into become a private citizen. And he started several businesses in the restaurant industry and other industries in the United Kingdom. He was off his family was often considered a power couple because his wife was also a professional, and she eventually took a job at Google and eventually worked at Uber and in the policy department or the policy part of the company. He was working in the United Kingdom with in the political sphere, and his wife was working in the business world in the policy department of Google as well as Uber. It just so happens that during that year, Uber expanded quite dramatically in the United Kingdom, which I'm sure it doesn't hurt to have a spouse that is well connected in the United Kingdom's politics when you're trying to advocate for a company that is expanding in different offices in different cities in the United Kingdom. Eventually, he made his way over to the United States of America and he moved to California in 2012. And then he began his political career here as a commentator. He wrote several books, and essentially he came out as a conservative personality in the right-leaning space, the conservative space in the United States. He's rumored to be very closely allied with President Donald Trump, which makes a lot of sense why Donald Trump would endorse him for governor of the state of California. His Steve Hilton story is a demonstration, like I said, of what you can achieve when you have access to a culture of innovation. In the United Kingdom, he was a direct recipient of free, high quality education. And that allowed him to come from rather modest means financially to enter the political space and eventually earn enough and start a business and get access to capital and funding and so on and so forth in order to begin making a name for himself in the political space as well as in the business world. That investment that the United Kingdom made in professional development, in education of children, in giving access to high quality education to students and children who may not be able to afford it was very pivotal in Steve Hilton's ascension into the upper spheres of the United Kingdom's society. When he moved out to California, to the United States of America, there was a lot of opportunities for him in the business world for him to continue to grow his career and his family to continue to earn a pretty good living. If you ever met someone from California, you'll know that we are some of the most loving, some of the most understanding, some of the most empathetic. We are some of the most welcoming people in the state of California. And I think it's because, we live near the ocean. And for the longest time, they've referred to Los Angeles and many of our cities as melting pots. The melting pot of the world, the cultural melting pot of the world. And I think the reason why so many people believe that California is the perfect place to call home once you immigrate to the United States of America is because we are so welcoming of other cultures. We're so tolerant. We embrace other cultures. We like infusing things. We like the fusion of Asian with African, with good old United States of America, with Latin vibes. We like bringing cultures together and essentially innovating and creating new types of food, new types of dance, new types of music, new types of entertainment, new kinds of business. We love that ability to innovate with people of other countries and other cultures. We love integrating new perspectives. We love appreciating each other's differences. We love that. It's something that exercises our intellectual juices and gets us to be more productive and gets us to be more fulfilled in our lives. And I believe when his family moved out to California in 2012, they were welcomed with open arms and they were appreciated for the diversity that they represented, being descendants of Hungarian immigrants to the United Kingdom and then being immigrants to the United States of America. Empathy is a big driver of innovation. It's a big driver of creating a culture of innovation. A lot of great things come from offering empathy to people who are immigrating, offering empathy to people who have different perspectives, and then experiencing how that empathy turns around and it is returned back to us. Whenever you offer empathy to someone who is a good person, you can pretty much take it to the bank that that empathy is going to come back to you. If they're a good person, you feel kind of bad if someone is nice to you and you're not nice back to them. We're very friendly, we're very kind, we're very respectful. And that's what makes us great friends. That's what makes people from California great friends. And that's what makes people in the United States of America great friends to have. We're so empathetic. He's running for politics, he's running for a governor. And I have to first say that anyone who raises their hand and says, hey, I'm going to run for governor of the state of California, or I'm going to run for office in any office to try to make a difference, we must first acknowledge the courage that it takes to do something like that. And so I'll say that. The last thing is a negative, and I have to share this with my audience. It's Steve Hilton. He is not part of the Hilton family, so those are two different scenarios. But because of his childhood, because of how he was able to climb his way up in the United Kingdom, in the economy, in the society, in his own community, and because of the way he was able to immigrate to the United States of America and take the oath to become a citizen of the United States of America, because of the empathy that he received and the access to the education that he received, you would expect someone like that to advocate for high quality education for all children. You would expect someone like that to advocate for strong programs that enable people like him to succeed. You would expect someone like that to advocate for social programs that enable us to be a better run and a more safe and a more creative society. But unfortunately, the politics that I've seen him publish, they don't really speak to the needs that someone like him would need, the needs that they would need to have fulfilled. A lot of his policies don't speak to that experience. It's almost as if somewhere along the way he lost his way. And as a California resident, as someone who was born and raised in Southern California, I joined the military. I'm loyal to the soil. I I find myself struggling with the type of man that Steve Hilton is, based on his experience and his life experience and the policies that he represents. It feels as if there's two different things going on here. How can you be the product? How could you be the recipient and the beneficiary of so many government programs, and then not advocate when you become an adult for strong, competent programs that enable people like him that are very talented, very intellectual, um, very driven, very ambitious? How can you not advocate for government programs that enable us to educate and train and develop children like him, who, by no fault of their own, are experiencing poverty, by no fault of their own, if they find themselves in another country, by no fault of their own, they're trying to make it work in life with a lot less resources than everyone else. And so I find that it's a problem. Supporting him would cause an internal conflict with myself when I think about voting. But each and every one of you have to make your own decisions. But I have an issue supporting him as a candidate for governor because I don't see enough of what he's doing to make sure that people like him, if he was a child growing up in Southern California, make sure that people like him don't have to experience the same issues that he had to experience. Creating a culture of innovation requires us to stay loyal to our core values. There's no other way to say that. And that's represented by the man that Steve Hilton is and how he's running for governor. When we're creating a culture of innovation, we must always make sure that if our core values are integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do, we have to stay loyal to that throughout the process of creating a culture of innovation. If our core values are liberty and justice for all, then we must make sure that we stay loyal to those core values while we create a culture of innovation. If your company's values are creativity or making sure that we do right by our people and right by our clients, you must make sure that you stay loyal to those company core values while you create a culture of innovation. So that takes us to the 3 steps that you should take in order for you to create a culture of innovation. Number one, when you're creating a culture of innovation on your team, look at everything as a learning opportunity. Every mistake, every growth, every success, make sure you pull out lessons learned. Make sure that you identify the things that you did extremely well, your strengths, and identify your weaknesses. The idea is every week and every month, you want to make sure that you are providing the people on your team an opportunity to develop additional skills that they need in order to be even more successful at your company. And in order to do that, you want a running curriculum, a living curriculum. And that curriculum should be something that is being built by the successes, the lessons learned from your successes and your failures. We see that education and development and professional development and different online courses, we see that education is such a big driver of innovation that when we're creating a culture of innovation, we must first start off with initiatives that allow us to continue to educate ourselves on the things that are going to help us be successful. Sometimes it takes humility. Sometimes it takes us to be students. Sometimes when we go to work, we're like, hey, we've already graduated. I got my bachelor's, I got my master's, I got my doctor's degree. I'm done doing homework, I'm done doing quizzes, I'm done testing. But my friends, if you have a job, consider your job as an assignment. Consider your job as a curriculum. Consider the time that you have at your company as the time that you have at college. You should be learning something every single day. When you learn something every single day, you get better every single day. And as you continue to get better, that culture of innovation that you want to create begins to be established. When you're the lowest person at your company and you see evidence that your manager or your manager's manager, your leader, or one of your executives is learning something, when you see someone above you in the chain of command or above you in the org chart, when you see them learning something or taking a class, that makes you feel good about taking your classes. That makes you feel good about bringing that student, that part of your personality that is a student. It makes you feel good bringing that student to work with you. It makes you feel good about saying, hey, can you teach me this? Or can you share with me your perspective on that? Don't get complacent. I've seen so many companies and so many organizations get complacent where the people at the top level of the organization, they stop learning. They don't read books, they don't read magazines. They're not trying to expand their knowledge of what things could be and how things can work. They just stop learning and they expect everyone else to learn around them. But my friends, you stay young when you learn. You stay young when you're developing new skills. You engage, you light a fire into that youthful part of your personality that enables you to have longer longevity than a lot of your peers. So I encourage you to commit yourself to constant growth. Either you're growing or you're dying. Either you're growing or you're getting weaker. Either you're getting stronger or you're getting weaker. Always continue to be growing. Once you make a habit of growing, it doesn't feel that hard to grow. That's the first step. The second step, when you're creating a culture of innovation, is to make sure that you offer empathy. You should lead with understanding, lead with empathy. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should be listening. We listen first, then we speak, and then we listen again. It's like left to right. Listen, speak, listen. You'll never forget that. Look in the mirror, look at your phone. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen, speak, and then listen. Always lead with empathy. When someone comes through the door and they make a mistake, they just joined your company and they made a mistake. You see a new client walk through the door and they're a little bit out of sorts. Maybe they come from a different culture. Maybe they have a different background. Maybe they have a different ethnicity. Always first lead with empathy. Always first lead with trying to understand that that mistake that they made isn't with ill intent. That mistake that they made, or they may have rubbed you the wrong way, or they may have said something that is rude. Don't automatically assume they have ill intent. Assume that they're at their baseline. Lead with empathy. Try to figure out what's going on with them. Try to figure out if they have any extenuating circumstances. Try to get some understanding about their background, how they were raised, the culture that they come from that may have caused them to say or do something that seems offensive to you. Always lead with empathy. If there's an immigrant, lead with empathy. If there's someone of a different culture, different background, different educational level, lead with empathy. If they are a good person, and let's assume we're dealing with good people who we're serving and good people at our company, the person that receives empathy, if they're a good person, is going to return that empathy to you. It may take a day, it may take a week, but trust and believe when they get ready to write a review of your business, when they get ready to write a review of your performance, that empathy that you extended to your manager, the empathy that you extended to someone who is on your team, the empathy that you extended to someone who is your client, that empathy is going to be returned back to you if they're a good person. Now, if they're not a good person, you know it is what it is. You write it off, consider it as a lesson in empathy, and you move on and just invest in different types of people. But for the majority of the people that you meet, if you offer them empathy, it's going to turn back into something that is going to be helpful for you. When you're creating a culture of innovation and you lead with empathy, you empower people to make mistakes. You empower people to try new things. They may try a new solution to an old problem. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, right? But you give them that freedom to bring their best of their intelligence and the best of their creativity to work. And you don't have to have every solution. Every solution may not work, but that one solution that does work, that one team member that is often overlooked and underappreciated, when they bring a solution to work and it actually works for everyone, the gains that you get from it, the rewards that you're able to experience as a team, the increase in productivity and the increase of efficiency and the profits that you're able to create, those things will be way more than you could ever imagine them being, especially coming from someone who has been overlooked and underappreciated. You'll never know the greatness of those returns on investment that you're making in extending empathy to people on your team. So if they make a mistake, lead with empathy. Try to figure out what is going on. Try to figure out what happened. Why did it happen? Try to turn it into a lesson. Lead with empathy. And then once you finish, right? Once you're all done, maybe you're wrapping up the conversation. You've told them something that they need to work on. Make sure you end it with empathy. Use that sandwich technique. When you leave someone with a positive taste in their mouth, even if you have to correct them, you empower them to go out, do the best that they can in order to improve their performance. And that improve that morale that you're giving them, that motivation that you're giving them, it not only helps them as a team member, but it also helps your team and your company be more efficient. That is a empathy is a huge step. If you get that down, that's saying something. A lot of times people can hear you say, "Hey, give somebody empathy," but if you don't exemplify it as a leader, or you don't exemplify it as a manager, if you don't have that thing in your heart that allows you to speak with someone with respect and to give orders in a way that you're giving orders in a way that you're communicating not just that you need things done, but you're communicating things that, hey, I value you as a person, but I also need you to do X, Y, and Z. If you don't know if you do not know how to give orders like that, it just makes your job so much harder. Get that empathy down, and then we'll move on to the next step. The next step of creating a culture that encourages and promotes innovation, a culture of innovation, is to make sure that you stay loyal to your core values. I cannot stress this enough. There are so many companies out there when you think about self-disrupting companies, companies that are always getting better, always pursuing excellence in everything that they do, companies that are increasing their market share. Every single one of those companies is able to be successful in the long run because they stay true to their core values. Do you ever wonder why some companies are able to last for multiple generations and continue to innovate and continue to get better and continue to solidify themselves as the industry leader, even though the industry is changing beneath their feet? It's because that those companies have a mechanism that allows them to stay true to their core values. They will not compromise on their core values. So when you're creating a culture of innovation and you're trying to make sure that you're setting yourself up for sustainable long-term growth, you must also, at the same time as you're embracing change, you also must embrace uncompromising loyalty to your core values. It should be in the way that you start meetings. You should demonstrate your core values in the way that you close the day. You should demonstrate your core values in every interaction that you have with your clients and with your staff. I cannot stress how important those core values are going to be in your ability to be able to create a culture of innovation. Those core values allow you to have a North Star. It allows you to navigate those gray areas. It allows you to navigate the conflicts the interpersonal relationship conflicts that you may have with people on your team and people who walk into your office as potential clients. Those core values allow you to, at the end of the day, if the product fails, if the service is unsatisfactory, it allows you to navigate those disappointments in life and those disappointments in your business in a way where you can step with confidence into whatever mitigation you're going to have to do in order to fix the problem that you're experiencing with the product or the problem that you're experiencing with your service. This is something that has been demonstrated many, 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 many times over in very well run and successful organizations. It's something that I experienced while I was serving in the United States Air Force. There's been times when, as a commander, we are put in situations where we know exactly what needs to get done and when it needs to get done and how it needs to get done. But as a radar commander, when you are watching the scope, when you're watching your radar and you're seeing things fly over, you're seeing launches, you're seeing different satellites orbiting the Earth, and you're supposed to make certain reports, there's some gray areas in there that could completely trip you up if you don't have a certain level of core values, if you're not staying true to your core values. Right? Integrity first, service for self, excellence in everything that we do. If I see a mistake on crew, right, and I don't report that mistake because I don't want to look bad, then the next crew that takes over for me, they may run into even bigger and bigger issues because I did not report the mistake and they were not able to adjust to the mistake or adjust to be able to fix the issue that my crew had caused. I've had that been done to me, and I just I don't command like that. I don't lead like that. I don't manage like that. If there's something that is going to threaten my core values, I'm just not going to do it. We're just not going to do it. When you think about innovation, we think about creating a culture of innovation. If there is something that is going to threaten your core values or who you are who you are as an individual, don't do it. It may look like it's a great idea in the short run. It may look like it's a great idea for the next 5 years or 10 years. But trust and believe, when we're talking about creating generational wealth, when we're talking about creating profits that exceed expectations that is going to last us for the next couple of generations, when you think about establishing yourself as an industry leader, you cannot compromise your core values and expect to be successful in the long run. You just can't. It's not a thing. It will always come crashing down. You might sacrifice a little bit here, sacrifice a little bit of honesty there, a little bit of transparency there, a little bit of integrity over there. And eventually you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to prioritize short-term profits, not knowing that that culture of innovation that you're trying to create that is supposed to make your team a high-performing team, as you sacrifice your core values of integrity, you find that okay, now your staff is not being as honest in the reports. Now your clients are not being as honest with their payments. And it just permeates the entire organization. And essentially, all the innovation that you expected to be able to create and to promote and to use, all that innovation falls right out of in between your hands because you were not loyal, you were not true to your core values. That's the third step. Be true to your core values, be loyal to your soil. While you're creating a culture of innovation, do that so that your innovation and the initiatives that you kick off will be able to be successful. That's my message for you today. Write this down if you haven't taken notes already. Creating a culture of innovation can be done in 3 steps. Number 1, invest in education. Number 2, make sure that you lead and you end with empathy. And then the third thing, when you're creating a culture of innovation, make sure, make sure that when you're creating a culture of innovation, you stay loyal to the soil. You stay loyal to your core values. You don't sell them out for anything. That's my message for you today. I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to talking to you again in the next video. Thank you.